Well, hello again and welcome to another edition of Shed Talk, my magazine type video series that looks at all things keeping, breeding and showing of Exhibition Budgerigars. This month in the shed's been fairly interesting actually. I've had a couple of things happen that I've never had happen in the shed, a couple of challenges that I've never had before, and along with that it seems like some of the breeding budgies have finally got really into the swing of things, and we're starting to have some real success, particularly in cage 2 and in cage 3. I'm not sure whether it's the spring weather, but it certainly seems like there has been some success alongside those challenges. As I mentioned in the last video, for those of you that saw it, coming up in the next video, so at the beginning of May, I think it's due to be released on the 6th of May, is the first in a two-part series of the talk given by Peter Merritt. As you know, Peter is a really well-known and established breeder and exhibitor of budgerigars, very successful on the show show scene, and like I've said before, it was very interesting, a very entertaining video. If you don't want to miss it, then of course please do subscribe to the channel, and as always hit the like button, and a bit like those pet budgerigars, do whack that bell. So let's crack on then and have a look at what those challenges were first. So as I said then, there have been a couple of firsts for me in terms of challenges in the shed. It's amazing, no matter how long we keep these birds, they always seem to throw up some surprises, don't they? The first of those is, I suppose, the easiest one to talk about first. Was I had a hen that abandoned an egg. So she laid one egg and then abandoned it and didn't go back down to nest, so was showing no interest whatsoever in going into the nest box. I may have mentioned this in a video or a couple of videos ago in my last update. Nothing unusual about, or I don't think particularly unusual about, hen suddenly getting bored with breeding, but I took the egg that was obviously cold and it had only just been laid, so I took the egg out and popped it under another hen that was already sat on egg. So she was already sat on one egg, which is what I would normally do, in the hope that if it is fertile, or you know, that she would be able to bring it up, or she'd be able to brood it. When I came back in the next day into the shed to have a look at or check the nest boxes, she had moved that egg, the egg I'd put in there, to another end of the nest box, and it once again was stone cold. But she'd also laid a second egg herself, and she was still sat on both of her own eggs. So what I then did was I placed a marble in there as well in the nest box underneath her, and popped the egg back in with her own clutch. Next day again, came back in, she was sat on two eggs and a marble, but the egg that I'd put under her, that wasn't her own egg, she had moved to one side of the nest box and it was stone cold. So I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I ended up just removing the egg and chucking it away, because I had no other hens that I could put it under. Realistically, it was now 3 or 4 days that the egg had been stone cold for. So like I say, never ever had that before with any hen. Normally if I pop an egg under a hen who's already sat on eggs or on a single egg, she will just carry on sitting on them. I'm not quite sure why this particular hen decided that this egg definitely wasn't hers. It was no different to hers, it wasn't marked in any way. But there we go, that was a first for me. Not sure whether any of you have had that experience with hens just refusing to sit on another bird's eggs. Very strange. So that was the first one. So the second unusual challenge that I had was with cage 4. You may remember this pair was being quite successful. They had laid full clutch, all the eggs were full, 3 of them hatched and were all being reared quite successfully. In fact, we looked at one of the offspring from this pair. It was the light green or the cinnamon green that we took to the Oxford 1910 Barhead show. So all going really well in there. And then the cockbird, for some reason, took a fancy to one of the chicks that had just come out of the nest box. That in itself, you know, isn't unusual. It happens, you know, occasionally. I've had it happen before. What was strange in this case was that every time then the hen left the nest box to feed, he would attack her and stopped her from feeding. So, and I watched the cage for best part of an hour, and every time she came out, he chased her back into the nest box and attacked her. So I had no choice really but to remove the cockbird from that cage. So I took the cockbird out. Hen then carried on rearing the 2 youngsters fine. There wasn't a particular problem with that. Youngsters weaned. We'll have a look at those 2 youngsters in a bit anyway, so you can see those 2. So they both were weaned fine. Removed them, and then I thought I'll pop the cockbird back in because, you know, he's been successful with her before. They've been split. There's no other chicks in there. Hopefully all would be well. Popped him back in. The reverse happened. Hen went completely mad and started attacking the cockbird, chasing him all around the cage. And again, I watched this go on for about 10 or 15 minutes. And every time the cockbird moved out of the corner of the cage, she was down on him. So I took him out, put him back into the stock cage. Thought I'd give it a couple of days because I'd only just removed the chicks, and I wonder whether that she was still a little bit thinking that the chicks were still around and he might attack the chicks. So I gave it 2 or 3 days, popped him back in, and we've got wedding bliss in there again. So everything's now fine with this pair. But I've never had it before where you know. So we had both birds here. So originally cockbird attacking the hen, and then the hen attacking the cockbird. So, but now it's wedded bliss in there. They're all fine. So I obviously popped him back in a little bit too early, I think, for her liking. So hopefully now we'll have some more full eggs and more chicks off this, and I'll just have to keep an eye on them once the chicks start to leave the nest box again. There you go, challenges. Like I say, both of those were brand new for me. The hen not sitting on the egg, and this pair, the way they behaved as the chicks started to leave the nest box, never had that before either. Like I say, let me know your thoughts. Let me know whether you've had any of those particular problems, but it was a bit of a surprise for me in this particular cage. Well, as I said, we had a couple of youngsters that now weaned from cage 4 and are in the nappy flight. So what I thought I'd do is just have a quick, put them into the show cages, and we can just have a quick look at those now. So here we are then. This is the first of the 2 youngsters that we're going to look at. They're the younger siblings of the cinnamon light green that we took to Oxford 1910 show. This first one is a opaline cinnamon light green, as you can see, reasonably settled in the cage at the moment. As always, famous last words. Overall, not a bad style bird. She's a little bit nervous. She got it's going to be a hen. A little bit narrow across the top of the head. I said it was a famous last words about him being settled, or her being settled. A little bit narrow across the top of the head. Reasonable length of mask, and not a bad size considering that it is still quite young. Yeah, a bit narrow across the top of the head, like I say. That might improve as she gets a bit older, although unlikely to improve massively. Reasonable depth of mask, and reasonable style about her. So that is the first of the 2 youngsters that we're going to take a look at. And here's the second, like I say, another opaline cinnamon light green. This one's reasonably settled in the show cage as we look at her at the moment. Similar in style to her sister that we've just looked at, a little bit narrow across the top of the head, reasonable depth and width of mask, quite nice around the back, and reasonably clean for an opaline. See if we can get in a little bit closer on her. And back to the first one. She's a little bit more settled now, so you can see the bit behind the eyes, not too bad. Quite nice feather down around the back of the neck. And again, reasonably clean for an opaline. And that is these two youngsters. Just hope we get a few more off of this pair. Well, the two newish pairs in cage 2 and cage 3 that you can see behind me have been a bit of a success story for me, and both of them have started laying. Cage 2 got off to a little bit of a false start. The hen laid 2 eggs and she decided to break both of them. As always, we put the marble in there, and that seemed to prevent her from breaking the following eggs. She's now laid an additional 8 eggs. So she laid 10 in total in the first round, which is a fair old number, so I'll need to keep an eye on her and make sure that she's not hasn't become too much for her. But as I say, laid an additional 8 eggs, 7 of those are full, and we're expecting the first of those eggs to hatch very, very shortly. So cage 2, as I say, that's a bit of a success. Cage 3, which contains my best cockbird and in fact my best hen as well, so pairing best to best here. Hen has laid 5 eggs, all 5 are full. I was expecting the first of those to have hatched by now, but it's gone over by a couple of days, and I have a feeling that it's become addled, and my gut feeling is this is the cockbird. The cockbird is spending quite a bit of time in the nest box, so I suspect he's interfering a little bit with the hen brooding. Just only my gut feeling, but the amount of time he's spending in there is probably causing the problem. So we'll wait and see how the others get on, but touch wood, you know, we'll get a few chicks off of my best to best pair. So that's the success in cage 3. Moving on then to the other 2 newish pairs, both in cage 5 and in cage 6. They're really new pairs. Both of the hens have cleared nest boxes, and indeed in cage 5 the hen has actually started laying, and as of today she's laid a total of 4 eggs. 4th one was laid today. Haven't checked any of those for fertility yet, due to check those in a couple of days or very, very shortly. So I'm hoping that again in cage 5 we'll have some full eggs. I have seen the pair mating, so I've seen the cockbird treading the hen, so again touch wood will you know that there'll be fertile eggs in there. Cage 6 is less so. The hen has, as I say, been in the nest box, cleared it, not seen any mating taking place, and the hen doesn't seem to want to sit in the nest box. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to give these, you know, another week or 2 just to see how they get on. But if she hasn't started laying, I will probably split this pair. I might even give this cockbird one final chance with a different hen. So there we go. That's an update on the both how I wean the birds, but how we're getting on in the various cages. So there we are. So the only cage we've not spoken about then was cage 1. This pair are due to start their second round. You remember in the first round we had full eggs off this pair, but unfortunately only one of those hatched, and the one that hatched didn't survive. The hen didn't feed it. So we'll wait and see whether we get any more eggs off of this pair. But seeing as the rest of them seem to be going reasonably well, I'm hopeful that this pair will also go for a second round. So it does seem that as the weather's warmed up over here in the UK, the birds have responded to that by producing or breeding a bit better, producing more and more full eggs. I'm not sure whether that's just the change in the weather, bearing in mind that the breeding cages are all indoors with heating and artificial lighting, so I'm not sure how the outside weather can impact on them. But you know, as the spring's progressed, so has the success rate. I know some people don't start breeding until around about now anyway, so and they will say that the birds are better for it breeding slightly later in the spring. So I don't know, it just seems that way at the moment. But let me know your thoughts. Do you breed or put your birds down for the ring date, or do you wait until you're a bit later in the year when the weather's a little bit better? I know we all try to breed to the ring date, don't we? So I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But if we're going to show, we need those at least one or two of those early chicks, don't we? So then, that's my thoughts on the way it's going. So the breeding season is going so far. Well, that is just about all we've got time for in this video. In the last video, I spoke a bit about feeding and my soft food, and I said if anybody wanted me to repeat or do another video on my soft food mix, let me know. And indeed, I did get a comment following that video from, let me just double check, from Susan Das, and Susan asked whether I could do another video, so I will do that in the relatively near future. I do have a few videos planned for next month, so hopefully we'll be able to fit it in, but we'll have to wait and see. But as you're aware, there is a video already out there covering my soft food, so if you're in a real hurry, just go back and have a look at that one. But I will do another video. So thanks for the feedback on that, Susan. But as always, until the next video, please do stay safe and enjoy your birds.